Look, I'm not saying my life was perfect before I accidentally became humanity's galactic representative, but at least I knew what to expect. Wake up at 9 p.m., drag myself to cosmic grounds, serve overpriced coffee to aliens who tip in crystallized methane, and pretend I don't notice when they use our bathroom to molt. Maya Rodriguez, professional caffeine dealer and part-time existential crisis haver. That's me. 26 years old, 2 jobs, 3 roommates, and exactly $47 in my checking account. Living the dream in post-contact Earth. Where we went from, are we alone in the universe to excuse me, sir, your tentacle is in my personal space in about 6 months. The night shift at Cosmic Grounds was usually dead except for the occasional vegan tourist who wanted to experience authentic human bean water. That's what they called coffee. Bean water. Like we're some kind of primitive species that figured out how to make plants taste good through applied heat and desperation. Which, to be fair, we kind of are. It was 3 a.m. on a Tuesday when he walked in. And by walked, I mean shuffled like someone had replaced his bones with overcooked spaghetti. Definitely alien, but trying really hard not to look it. He'd gone with the classic human disguise approach, which mostly involved wearing a baseball cap pulled down low and hoping nobody noticed his skin had a faint blue tint under the fluorescent lights. He ordered a small coffee, black, and paid with exact change in quarters. Then he sat in the corner booth and proceeded to nurse that coffee like it contained the secrets of the universe. For 3 hours. Now, I've seen my share of down-on-their-luck customers. Hell, I am one most days. But this guy looked like he hadn't eaten since the Carter administration. His clothes were clean but worn, and he kept glancing at the pastry case with the kind of longing usually reserved for ex-boyfriends and lottery tickets. I should have minded my own business. I had exactly one job, serve coffee and pretend to care about customer satisfaction surveys. But something about the way he sat there, shoulders hunched like the weight of the world was doing bicep curls on his back, got to me. So I did something spectacularly stupid. I grabbed a turkey sandwich from the case, wrote damaged goods free on the wrapper, and dropped it at his table with a fresh coffee refill. "Oh, I cannot pay for this," he started, and his accent was definitely not from around here. Not even from around this solar system. "Good thing it's free then," I said, already walking away before he could argue. "Damaged goods. Can't sell it anyway." He stared at that sandwich like I'd just handed him the crown jewels. Which, as it turned out, wasn't that far from the truth. The next night he was back. Same booth, same hunched shoulders, but this time he had money for food. Real money, not the weird crystalline currency some aliens tried to pass off as legal tender. "I wanted to thank you," he said when I brought over his coffee. "Yesterday was difficult for me. Your kindness meant more than you know." "It was just a sandwich, dude. Don't get all Hallmark movie on me." But he shook his head like I'd just solved world hunger with a side of chips. "You do not understand. I am Prince Zephyr Val Thak of the Andromedian Empire, heir to the Crimson Throne and keeper of the sacred flames of eternity." I stared at him. He stared back. "Sure you are, Your Highness. And I'm the Queen of England. You want another refill?" That's when he casually reached into his pocket and pulled out what looked like a chrome smartphone, except it was floating 6 inches above his palm and projecting a holographic display that definitely wasn't running iOS. My father exiled me 18 standard months ago for what he called philosophical differences, what I called refusing to glass entire star systems for their mining rights. The hologram showed a guy who looked like Zephyr if Zephyr hit the gym for about 1,000 years and developed a serious anger management problem, standing next to what appeared to be a fleet of ships that could probably crack planets like walnuts. "So you came to Earth because it is considered such a backwater, primitive world that no one in their right mind would think to look for me here. No offense. None taken. We kind of are a backwater, primitive world. But hey, we've got Netflix." Zephyr actually smiled at that, and for a second he looked less like an alien prince and more like a guy who really needed a friend. Do you know what it is like, Maya Rodriguez, whose name I definitely did not obtain through completely legal means, to be surrounded by people who only show you kindness because they want something from you? Power, status, protection from your father's wrath? Can't say I do, but I know what it's like to be surrounded by people who don't show you kindness at all, so there's that. He laughed, and it wasn't the bitter laugh I expected. It was genuine, surprised, like he'd forgotten what that felt like. You gave me food when I had nothing to offer in return. You treated me like a person when you had no idea who I was. That sandwich represented the first genuine human compassion I have experienced since arriving on your planet. Do you understand how rare that is in the galaxy? Dude, it's really not that deep. You looked hungry. I had food. Basic human decency. Basic human decency, he repeated, like he was tasting the words. Yes, that is exactly what makes you people so fascinating. I was about to ask what he meant by that when every electronic device in the coffee shop started screaming at once. Not literally screaming, but that high-pitched whine that means either alien technology is interfering with our primitive electronics or someone's about to get probed. Given my luck, probably both. The ships appeared over downtown at exactly 4:17 a.m., because apparently even galactic empires have a sense of dramatic timing. They didn't decloak or materialize or any of that flashy science fiction nonsense. They just showed up, like they'd been there all along and we'd somehow failed to notice several dozen city-sized objects hanging in our sky. Oh, Zephyr said, staring through the window with the expression of someone who'd just realized they left the stove on. In another galaxy. That is not good. Let me guess. Daddy found you? Daddy found me. The coffee shop door didn't open so much as ceased to exist for about 3 seconds while 4 figures in what looked like high-tech medieval armor walked through. They moved like they owned the place, which, given the size of those ships outside, they probably did now. Prince Zephyr Valthak, the lead figure announced, their voice coming through a translator that made them sound like James Earl Jones having a bad day. By order of Emperor Vextar, you will return to Andromeda to face judgment for your crimes against the Empire. What crimes? I asked, because apparently my mouth had declared independence from my brain. He's been sitting in a coffee shop for 18 months. The most criminal thing he's done is not tip on a $2 coffee. The lead guard turned to look at me, and I got the distinct impression that being noticed by these people was not generally a good thing. The human speaks. How amusing. The human has a name, and she's standing right here, so maybe use your inside voice when you're insulting her species. I should have kept my mouth shut. I really should have kept my mouth shut. But something about their tone, that casual dismissal like we were houseplants with opinions, flipped every switch I had. Maya, do not, Zephyr started. No, it's fine, I get it, we're primitive. We serve bean water and can't figure out faster than light travel. But you know what we can figure out? Basic politeness. Maybe try it sometime. The guard who'd spoken stepped closer, and I realized I was about to have a very short conversation with some very advanced weaponry. But Zephyr moved between us, and suddenly the air got very tense very quickly. She is under my protection, he said quietly. You are in no position to protect anyone, Exile. You will come with us now, or we will take you by force. And the human? The human will be detained as a witness to your harboring by this primitive species. Emperor Vextar wishes to question her about Earth's involvement in concealing a wanted criminal. That's when I learned that being a witness in galactic politics is roughly equivalent to being a prop in someone else's very expensive, very deadly theater production. They didn't arrest me so much as politely indicate that I should come along or they'd make the coffee shop a crater. Zephyr kept trying to argue, but it's hard to negotiate when the other side has ships that could turn your planet into gravel. The worst part? As they were escorting us to their shuttle, I saw Emperor Vextar's holographic image addressing what appeared to be the entire planet. "Citizens of Earth," he announced, like he was reading from a script written by someone who'd never met a human being. "Your world has harbored a criminal of the Andromedian Empire. As punishment for this transgression, your planet's resources will be harvested to pay for the crimes of our wayward son. This primitive species will be relocated to a more suitable environment." Translation: they were going to strip mine Earth and ship us off to some alien equivalent of a reservation. All because I gave a guy a free sandwich. The Galactic Council met in what looked like the universe's most expensive courtroom, that, if courtrooms were designed by someone who'd only heard courtrooms described by a drunk alien who'd seen too many space operas. I sat in what was probably supposed to be the witness stand, but surrounded by beings that looked like they'd been designed by a committee of science fiction writers having a fever dream. There was a crystalline entity that hummed show tunes, something that looked like an octopus wearing a business suit, and what appeared to be a sentient gas cloud with anger management issues. Emperor Vextar presided over the whole thing like a cosmic Judge Judy with delusions of grandeur. He looked exactly like his hologram, if his hologram had been hitting the gym and the authoritarian dictator handbook with equal enthusiasm. "We are here," he announced, "to determine the fate of the primitive species known as humanity, who have harbored a known criminal of the Empire." "Your Honor," I said, because apparently I was representing humanity now, and nobody had bothered to give me a law degree. With all due respect, we didn't know he was a criminal. We barely know he's a prince. He's been sitting in a coffee shop for 18 months ordering the same drink and tipping in quarters. The crystalline entity chimed what sounded like a question, and a translation appeared in the air. "Did the human species knowingly harbor the exile?" "No," Zephyr said from his own little defendant box. "Earth's population is largely unaware of galactic politics. Maya Rodriguez showed me kindness because she is a decent person, not because she knew my identity." "Irrelevant," Emperor Vextar declared. "Ignorance of galactic law is not an excuse. This species will face the consequences of their actions." "Hold up," I said, standing up because sitting down while someone planned to bulldoze your planet felt wrong. "You want to punish an entire species because one person gave your son a sandwich? That's not justice, that's just bad parenting with extra steps." The courtroom went dead silent. Apparently telling a galactic emperor he's a bad parent is considered poor form in civilized society. "You dare." "I dare point out that maybe, just maybe, if your son ran away from home and refused to come back for 18 months, the problem isn't the people who were nice to him. The problem is you." The octopus in the business suit made a sound that the translator rendered as appreciative laughter. The gas cloud seemed to be vibrating with what might have been amusement. "Furthermore," I continued, because apparently I'd decided to double down on career suicide, "you want to punish humanity for being decent people, for showing compassion to someone who needed it. That's not just bad parenting, that's bad governing. What kind of empire punishes kindness?" "The kind that maintains order," Vextar snarled. "No, the kind that's scared of its own people learning what decency looks like." I turned to address the council directly, figuring if I was going to talk my species into extinction, I might as well do it properly. "You want to know what humanity is? We're the species that figured out how to make coffee taste good and then spent 300 years arguing about the best way to do it. We're the species that will adopt literally any animal, no matter how useless, and call it family. We're the species that invented the concept of comfort food and then shared the recipes with anyone who asked." The council was actually listening now, which was either very good or very bad. "We're stubborn, we're irrational, and we have a tendency to make terrible decisions for the right reasons. But we're also the species that will give a stranger food when we barely have enough for ourselves. And if that's primitive, then I'll take primitive over whatever system produces people who think kindness is a crime." Emperor Vextar stood up, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop about 20 degrees. "You speak of human virtues. but words are meaningless without proof. If humanity wishes to avoid judgment, they will prove their worth through trial by combat. Trial by what now? Single combat. One representative of humanity against one representative of the Empire. Victory grants your species freedom. Defeat confirms your primitive status and seals your fate. The council murmured among themselves, which sounded like a mix of elevator music and construction equipment having an argument. I accept, I said, because apparently my mouth was still operating independently of my survival instincts. Maya, no, Zephyr called from his box. You do not understand what you are agreeing to. I understand that someone needs to stand up for Earth, and apparently that someone is me. Emperor Vextar smiled, and it was the kind of smile that usually preceded someone having a very bad day. Excellent. I will serve as the Empire's champion. Cool. What are the rules? There are no rules. Combat continues until one party yields or dies. Great. Fantastic. Love the whole death or glory vibe. But here's the thing, your imperial badness. I'm not going to fight you. The Emperor paused mid-gloat. Excuse me? I'm not going to fight you. I'm going to do something much worse. I'm going to give you the full human experience. Before anyone could ask what that meant, I turned to the council. I propose an alternative trial. Instead of combat, Emperor Vextar will experience human civilization for one standard day. If he can complete a series of basic human tasks without losing his mind, humanity accepts whatever punishment he deems fit. If he fails, Earth gets protectorate status and we all pretend this never happened. What manner of tasks? The octopus asked. Oh, you know, normal Tuesday stuff. Renewing a driver's license. Calling customer service. Assembling furniture. The crystalline entity chimed what sounded like confused musical notes. The human proposes psychological warfare, the translation read. I prefer to think of it as cultural exchange. Emperor Vextar looked around the courtroom like he was waiting for someone to explain the joke. You wish me to perform menial tasks. I wish you to understand what humans deal with on a daily basis. You think we're primitive? Prove it. Show us how a superior being handles the sophisticated challenges of human bureaucracy. The Emperor's expression suggested he thought I'd lost my mind, which, to be fair, was entirely possible. Very well. I accept your pathetic challenge, but when I complete your simple tasks with ease, your species will face the full wrath of the Empire. Deal. But we're doing this on Earth. Home field advantage. 4 hours later, Emperor Vextar stood in the lobby of the Department of Motor Vehicles, holding a number that read 847, while the display showed they were currently serving number 23. This is your trial? He asked, his voice already showing signs of strain. This is Tuesday, I replied. We haven't even gotten to the good stuff yet. By hour 6, after he'd been transferred between 14 different customer service representatives trying to resolve a billing dispute that didn't exist, the Emperor's left eye had developed a visible twitch. By hour 8, faced with an IKEA instruction manual that contained 17 different languages but somehow still made no sense in any of them, he was muttering what sounded like Andromedian death oaths under his breath. The wooden dowel labeled C does not match the diagram, he announced with the kind of desperate precision usually reserved for hostage negotiations. Yeah, that's part of the experience. You have to improvise. Improvise? This is a precise engineering task. Why would they include incorrect components? Because that's how IKEA works. You're not building furniture. You're participating in an ancient human ritual of suffering that somehow results in a bookshelf. By hour 10, Emperor Vextar was sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by approximately 47 wooden pieces, 4 different instruction manuals, and what appeared to be the shattered remains of his imperial dignity. I yield, he whispered. What was that? I yield. This is not warfare, this is madness. How do you people function in a society designed to drive you insane? Practice, I said. Lots and lots of practice. 3 months later, I was still trying to figure out how my life had gone from serving coffee to accidentally making humanity a galactic power player. The answer, as far as I could tell, involved a free sandwich, an exiled prince, and the universe's apparent sense of humor. Earth was now an official protectorate of the Galactic Council, which mostly meant we got to keep existing, and occasionally someone important showed up wanting to experience authentic human bureaucracy as a form of extreme sport. I was the official liaison, which sounded impressive until you realized it mostly involved explaining why humans do things like pineapple on pizza and reality television. The pay was better than the coffee shop, but the hours were weird and my business cards had to be translated into 17 different languages. Zephyr had been granted official asylum and appointed as Earth's cultural exchange coordinator, which was a fancy way of saying he hung around the coffee shop explaining human customs to confused alien tourists. Turns out, after 18 months of observation, he'd become something of an expert on human behavior. Your species is fascinating, he told me one evening as we closed up Cosmic Grounds. You have managed to create a society based on controlled chaos and somehow made it work. That's one way to put it. I was going to say we're all just making it up as we go along and hoping nobody notices. That too. The strangest part wasn't that I'd become humanity's representative to the galaxy. The strangest part was that it felt normal now. Aliens wanted coffee. Humans wanted aliens to understand that our weird customs weren't actually that weird, and I got paid to facilitate both. Emperor Vextar sent a formal apology and a gift basket containing what appeared to be crystallized fruit from 17 different worlds. The note said, "Respect to the species that weaponized customer service." I wasn't sure if that was a compliment or a threat, but the fruit was pretty good. Zephyr had moved in as my roommate, partly because alien asylum seekers don't qualify for Earth credit cards, and partly because someone needed to explain to him why humans put cereal in milk instead of the other way around. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked as we walked home past the memorial they'd erected commemorating the day Earth got noticed. Regret what? Accidentally becoming a galactic diplomat. Discovering that the universe runs on the same petty bureaucracy as everywhere else. Finding out that kindness is apparently a rare enough commodity to start interstellar incidents. Giving a stranger a sandwich. I thought about it. 3 months ago, I was Maya Rodriguez, professional caffeine dealer and part-time existential crisis haver. Now I was Maya Rodriguez, accidental representative of humanity and full-time proof that the universe has a seriously twisted sense of humor. "Nah," I said. "Best 47 cents I ever spent." "The sandwich cost 47 cents? I was broke, okay? It was store-brand turkey and day-old bread. You changed the course of galactic history with day-old bread." "Yeah, well, that's humans for you. We're too stubborn to know when something's impossible." Zephyr laughed, that same genuine sound that had started this whole mess. "Basic human decency," he said. "Basic human decency," I agreed. And if that was enough to accidentally make us a galactic power, then maybe we weren't as primitive as everyone thought. Maybe we were just getting started.